Hey everyone, welcome to another Facebook Live on Friday. I'm coming to you from my phone because for some reason my computer does not want to go and work on Facebook Live for some reason. I don't know, it's unhappy about something. Um, I just got back home. I was in Canada for this week, so doing a bit of travel. Just got back home. Had some lunch and about to go pick up my kids. I haven't seen them all week, so I'm excited to do that. But before I did that, I want to come live and do my Facebook Live for the week because I try to do this every week, so I want to keep that streak going. And this week's topic is something I've been thinking a little bit about over the past 3 or 4 weeks now, and it's on the topic of insulin. We often hear insulin in the context of diabetes, and you probably also hear insulin in the context of insulin resistant. People who have diabetes often are insulin resistant. And basically, take a step back just real quickly at a very high level, 1,000,000,000 foot view. Insulin is a hormone in your body, and this hormone has the responsibility of taking energy and shoving it into muscle or fat. Right? So it's kind of like a storage hormone. So what happens is whenever you ingest some kind of food, your insulin will go up, and its job is then to take the energy from that food and then place it into your muscles or send it to the liver to be converted to fat and stored as fat. And so different foods raise your insulin in different levels. So in most people, when you consume a high-fat food or a protein-rich food, insulin will spike, but it doesn't go up that much. And generally, our carbohydrate-rich foods will spike insulin a little bit more. So when you hear people who have type 2 diabetes who are insulin resistant, basically what's happening is they're constantly ingesting carbohydrates or consuming more carbohydrates than they really need to consume, and their body loses sensitivity to that insulin hormone, and they become what's called insulin resistant, and their blood sugar, as a consequence of not being able to remove the glucose out of their bloodstream from the carbohydrate because they're insulin resistant, is constantly elevated, and that is just a dangerous state. If it gets too high, it can be deadly. So because their body's own insulin can't do the job anymore, they need to do things like inject exogenous insulin into their body. But having high insulin isn't actually a bad thing, the more you think about it, right? And I like to think about one of the great analogies that helped me kind of put some of the pieces of this puzzle together is to think of insulin as a fuel selector switch, right? So when you're insulin sensitive, i.e. you're metabolically healthy, and your body is working the way as it should be, and you ingest a food that will spike your insulin levels, i.e. maybe you eat a sweet potato or some rice or whatever, what's going to happen is your insulin should go pretty high, right? Your body should secrete a bunch of insulin. And the reason is because we want to take that glucose that's now in our bloodstream and put it into the muscle as fast as we can. And that's what we want to happen, because I want to be able to access that fuel very quickly, right? And as long as there's room in the muscle, that is completely fine, right? Meaning as long as you have created the deficit necessary to take in that glucose and use it, then there's no issue there, right? So insulin going high is actually a good thing, right? And in fact, we see this. So if you look at studies, you'll see that in insulin sensitive people, people who are metabolically healthy, when they ingest a high carbohydrate meal or something a meal that has carbohydrates in it, then their insulin will actually go higher than the person who is insulin resistant, i.e. or metabolically unhealthy, And because they're more efficient at taking that food and shuttling it into their muscle glycogen than in their muscles uh, um, than the person who is metabolically unhealthy or insulin resistant. So the fact that your insulin doesn't go as high when you're insulin resistant is a bad thing. But you'll see that when you're healthy, insulin does go high, but then it immediately comes back down after it's done doing its job. Whereas in the insulin resistant person, because that fuel is not being removed from the blood system and stored, insulin is constantly high and glucose is constantly high, and that's just a bad situation to be in. So that's why I want my insulin to go sky high. The key is that I want it to go sky high and then I want it to come back down and be at a normal level after it's done doing its job and not constantly be lingering around. When you have it constantly lingering around at an elevated level, then that's the bad thing. That's what gets you into trouble. And it's not insulin that is the problem. It is not insulin. So saying that as long as you keep your insulin low, you're okay and you can eat whatever you want, that's just not true, right? And in fact, if you chronically keep your insulin super low and it gets too low, that's not as good. That's just as bad as it being super high all the time. So we want to have these normal fluctuations. We evolved having these normal fluctuations in insulin. We just need to make sure that we actually have a place to put the insulin, put the glucose, right? Put the storage, put the fuel that the insulin is removing from our bloodstream, right? And if you don't have a place to put it, that's where we start to have a problem, right? So if you're constantly ingesting foods, eating a lot of food, eating a lot of high calorie foods, just taking in more fuel than your body needs, you're not going to have a place for insulin to shuttle the fuel, the fuel that you're giving it, and that's where we start to develop insulin resistance. So don't think of insulin as a bad thing. You want that insulin spike after you eat a food, and you want it to go down quickly, and that's the key. That normal fluctuation is a healthy thing to have. So when you hear people say that insulin is the devil, it's the cause of diabetes, the cause of obesity, blah, 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 it's not true. Insulin is not the cause. It's just doing what it's supposed to do. So lots more thoughts on this. I think I might write a nice long blog post on it because I have a lot of thoughts around it. But that's this week's Facebook Live. Hope everyone had a good week. I wanted to make it quick and simple this week. And let me know if you have any questions. Happy to help, happy to answer them. Let me know if you think I'm completely wrong or I'm completely crazy. I'd love to have a discussion about it. And, my direct messages are always open, so you know where to find me. With that, I'll see you guys all next week and have a healthy week. See ya.